What's up, future Shredlords? Welcome back. Death to the Fingers. You're probably wondering what happened to me yesterday. Basically, I had myself a little bit of an old man day because I'm 50 now, and I walk 50 kilometers-ish, and I'm realizing after a couple weeks that I have to take a nap because I'm old. And you just have to obey your instincts. And so I had a nice day off yesterday, took several naps. It was wonderful. Caught up on a bunch of sleep, feel much better today. You know, dicked around on some music stuff, watched a movie, played a little bit of video games. Life's good. Somebody was asking about the video games thing now. Yeah, I'm playing Divinity 2, Dead Space. I'm at the, whatever, hydroponics lab fighting the Leviathan. I'm getting my ass kicked. And I'm also playing this other one, too, called Kingdom of Amalur Reckoning, I think it is, which is like Dungeons and Dragons sort of thing. Kind of like Diablo, but different, but similar. You know what it is. So anyways, that's what I've been doing, and that's what happened to me yesterday. You know how it is. But instead of just getting full balls deep into some music stuff, we can talk about this Megadeth situation, because I've seen some interesting takes on this. So yeah, I'll throw my 2 cents in. Basically, to me, this is the canary in the coal mine, right? By 2030, it won't be just Megadeth. It'll be Megadeth's gone, Maiden's gone, Priest gone, AC/DC gone. Most likely Metallica too. I mean, how many more years are they going to need to do this? How much more money do you need, really? You know, when you're already multi-millionaires and stuff like that. Like, how high can the highs be going out there and playing for the fans when you just do that every single day for decade after decade after decade? I mean, they've done their thing. And I think they still put on a pretty decent show, honestly. Comparably to some of the other bands, I saw some stuff that was scary as hell, man. David Lee Roth, it's harsh, man. It's really harsh when your idols sort of fall from grace a little bit, you know. And listen, there's no disrespect there. Diamond Dave's track record with respect to Van Halen stands for itself. But just seeing him sort of try to do those tracks now, it's kind of sad. Anyways, the Megadeth thing is, I think a lot of bands are sensing this. There's just no money in music, man. That's really all it is. That's why they're really hyping this up with an album and a tour cycle and everything. And this is the end. This is the big cash out. This is what big bands do. Look at friggin' Kiss. How many times did they basically pull this one? 2, 3? Like, it's nuts, you know, but they finally, and I still think Gene Simmons is touring with his own band doing Kiss. So, whatever. I mean, knock yourself out. Who knows? Maybe it's really good. But you see what I'm saying? Like, all of these bands are basically getting out of it because it's not because they can't do it or the lifestyle. And I'm sure that is probably a factor, because it's got to be hard on the body and the mind just going on a crazy tour and stuff. Even if it was just for 3 or 4 months, that would be grueling. You know what I mean? For the average person, if you weren't into it or you didn't actually do it and sort of been toughened up, that would really mess with you. The total, you know, inversion of routine, just being like a hobo on the road, hotel to hotel, you just kind of blur together. You see these people from the 80s in those videos, man. Especially, I always remembered, I think it's Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi. They just look so strung out after the show and stuff, after the adrenaline wears off. And it's just like, now we got to do another 20-hour bus ride to the next town and somehow, you know, work up the energy to just go out there and wow the crowd. I mean, you know, like, yikes. And it's not like the old days anymore. I noticed that instantly when I saw the Beyonce World Tour. We're talking like a few concert dates on the West Coast and the East Coast in the United States, and some down south and a few up north for sure, like the mega ones, where she can fill stadiums or whatever. But then just a couple places over in Europe. I didn't even think she actually hit anywhere else. Nowhere in South America, nowhere Central America, certainly not India or China or anything like that. So Japan. So I'm just like, that's your world tour? That's Beyonce's world tour. Like the person they're like, this is one of the biggest musicians in the world, up there with like Taylor Swift or whatever. Isn't that weird? Think about the total inversion there. Taylor Swift is the biggest pop star. A 30-year-old woman is the biggest pop star in the world. And listen, you might have been able to make that claim back in the 80s when it was Madonna and stuff like that, because she was such a cultural icon at the vanguard of basically offending the sort of civilized society at every turn. Like she just pushed every button and became culturally sort of embedded and relevant in that manner. That she just was like a force to be reckoned with, I guess, until it became insanely cliched, and now it's just sad as shit. But back when it actually mattered, I remember, what was it? Just Like a Prayer? How she just exploded the heads of the church with that video. Man, did they get pissed. It was just nuts. Right? So, I mean, listen, it's kind of like that D. Snyder moment where he just goes in and destroys the PMRC. That's one of those moments. And that's just it, like excluding the Megadeth thing, in which we'll talk about in a second. Just think about the fact that used to be one of the most powerful weapons we had, was organized music and whatnot. D. Snyder effectively, single-handedly defenestrated the entire government by walking in there in skin tight jeans and like a, cut off t-shirt or whatever, and just obliterate their argument. And he did so relatively eloquently, like he looked like this absolute madman. But then he sits down and he makes an articulated statement that's based in a lot of fact and freedom and whatnot, based around speech and just expression, artistically speaking. And just wrecks them. It's awesome, right? And that was literally one of those cultural moments that collapsed the entire religious right that was in power at the time. They were like, you can't listen to this music. So, I mean, they destroyed that. Do you ever see that with Taylor Swift? Like, look at what Woodstock did in '69 to the Vietnam War. Look at half the content of the Woodstock festival in and of itself was just anti-war in the first place. 500,000 people showing up. And then, the public sentiment started to seriously turn, which ultimately ended the war. They probably would have kept that going. Look how long Afghanistan went on for. 20 years, man. For what? For what? You know what I mean? Like, Afghanistan seems to be almost a carbon copy of Vietnam. Nothing gets done. It's like we don't even really know why we're there. You know what I mean? It's advantageous for banks or, the military industrial complex or whatever it is, and music stopped it. And then we stopped making music like that because the powers that be are like, nah, forget that. And now you got Sabrina Carpenter. And Olivia Rodrigo. And don't get me wrong, like, listen, I think I saw one from Olivia Rodrigo from a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, look at that. Wow. But, and it was even half decent musically. I was like, yeah, it's not bad, like this is a live rendition. It's actually pretty live, real instruments, the whole 9 yards, and well performed, if not generic, but still, it was enjoyable. Not gonna lie, I was like, yeah, it's not bad. And, put her up there too. I'm just like, in like, basically a Speedo friggin' bathing suit in high heels and fishnets. I'm just like, is this what we're doing now? I saw another one today where the chick just doesn't even wear a top, just has the little stars on her, her bits there. I remember when Butcher Babies were doing it, and they're like, "Yeah, this is childish," and they stopped. And that's good because it should be more about the music. But then this chick, it's like actually integrated. That's their stage attire. And so I have to seriously question that decision. You know what I mean? It was weird too because I was watching the guitar player during the live performance, and it was just weird as shit because he was actually pretty damn good. Obviously, if you're touring around playing every single day, you're gonna get good, no matter what. Or hopefully. But you know what I mean? It was just bizarre. Just make it about the music, dude. You don't have to take your clothes off. No wonder these stereotypes get heaped on these people in the first place. But I digress massively. I'm sorry. I just want to do the stream of conscious thing, but people need to understand Megadeth, it's not just the money with respect to touring and whatnot that's drying up, going to different places. It's dangerous. Your gear could get stolen. Look what happened with the Eagles of Death Metal at that Bataclan club. That's got to be a serious consideration now, going to a major city. It happened again in England with the Ariana Grande concert. I'm trying to be careful here. If you know, you know. So, there's security, there's touring, and of course these huge bands and stuff like that. It's not like us releasing an album, putting it out on Bandcamp where we design the cover ourselves and whatnot, and did all the mixing and played all the instruments. They have humongous budgets where it costs $1.5 million just to make the album. You know what I mean? And then you're talking like another $1 million on top of that, or two, to basically promote it worldwide. And now who knows how much for the concert stuff. And yeah, these people are very well compensated after they've already invested an insane amount of work into getting to that position. So I don't actually hold a grudge in that respect. I mean, they absolutely deserve every cent that they're getting right now. I don't care if they're making $100,000 per member every single night. A guy in Maiden since 82, 80, whatever, they deserve it. Okay, you try that lifestyle from 1980 to 2025, especially doing what they're doing, man. That would be absolutely insane. You'd have a really cool life for sure, but I bet you there's a lot of sacrifice there too. Doing a 2-year tour, never seeing your family for 2 years. Go away 1 year and you come back and your kid's 3. Walking around and stuff, come on. That's a pretty hardcore trade-off, man. And it's not like the world cares. When you got to stay relevant, so you got to keep moving, you know what I mean? So as far as those guys are concerned, they've learned to convert the branding of the band into sort of, income streams that are outside music. Like Mustaine, I heard this personally in an interview. He's like, I make way more money off the alcohol stuff. So there it is. This is the big send-off. He gets to, set up the other players and be like, here you go. Here's your retirement fund, whatever. And obviously, I'm not even going to lie. I watched an interview yesterday where somebody, it wasn't an interview. It was kind of like, discussing this issue. Downfall Network, I believe it was called. And they made some pretty astute points that, when Megadeth is opening for Five Finger Death Punch, and that's not me trying to trash the band in any way, shape, or form, or you're starting to get demoted to the opening slots because you're just not being able to secure the fan base anymore because it's just not as exciting. Plus, starting to become generic, right? Who wants to hear you play Hangar 18 on every tour since 1990, whatever that was, right? Until now. I love the song too, but there are 100 other ones on there too that I would love to hear, like Five Magics or Polaris or whatever. Lots of stuff off of So Far, So Good, So What, or some of the stuff that you will just refuses to play off of Peace Cells, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, okay, well, that complicates things. And that's just it. Like the other more experimental albums like Cryptic Writings or Risk or maybe Super Collider or even the later material, it just doesn't resonate. Like, that's what I mean. You get like this window for legendary status, and that's what cements you. But then afterwards, if you don't keep up the output, people just are like, okay, I like this band a lot, I'll support them to a certain degree, but it eventually runs out. Metallica is the only band I know of that has like this insane longevity where they have like 4 absolutely legendary albums, and really 2 of them are like creme de la creme, which I'm going to say are Master of Puppets and Justice. I feel like Ride the Lightning would have sounded better if it had Dave Mustaine on it actually playing guitar, because those are mostly his songs. Still very Metallic-y, no doubt about it, but you know what I mean? By bringing in Kirk at that point, they'd already basically adjusted to Dave's playing style, so they didn't really transition until Kirk had been in there and they toured around for a while, and then they gelled, and of course, boom, the next album is just like, you know, a big step up from the Ride the Lightning stuff, which is already a huge step forward. And then, of course, there's the absolute savagery of And Justice, one of my favorite thrash albums, even with the production issues. Man, does that thing is just beastly in every respect. Once you hear it once, especially back in the day, I was just like shocked. You know what I mean? When you're just like, this is so awesome. You just get like a bit of a cold sweat going on because you're just getting goosebumps. You're just like, damn. Up the bar, just authoritatively too, just so, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, when you kind of throw down like that, you get this forward momentum that just kind of launches you out into the stratosphere. You just keep sailing and stuff. That's why Metallica will outlast them all. They'd probably be one of the last bands to be like, pack it in. Although, obviously, AC/DC's had a longer career, and they probably still do just as well as Metallica do, basically on the live stuff. But, you know, that stuff's over. I saw another live clip with Brian Johnson, and even though it was, you know, better than what I was actually expecting, it's just done. It's just done. You know, musically it sounds good, but you can tell it's just over. You know what I mean? There's just no life left into it. It's just paint by numbers at this point. And that's just it. The weirdest part about the Megadeth thing for me is just like the whole era of the world tour and the global rock star and these people being larger than life and everything like that. It's just, it started with them and now it's ending with them too. The twilight is upon us, right? You'll get people on the internet that are into it and whatnot, as long as it's free. The biggest concert that took place on the internet thus far was a free concert put on by like Fortnite or something like that with, you know, Snoop Dogg and Eminem and all these rappers from the 90s and whatnot. It got like almost 15 million people to tune in, but it was because it was free. I saw that Beyonce could barely sell out certain venues, and there were quite a few empty seats. I saw another one like that with Guns N' Roses. Clearly, you know, Megadeth is starting to feel the pinch, if you will, you know, and they were like, what, number 2 in the thrash pecking order? You got Metallica and then Megadeth, and then I feel like, you know, it's Anthrax next for sure, and then Slayer came up the rear, but Slayer is basically done. I don't know if they're touring or not, but maybe. I thought they were, or I don't know. I mean, I really just don't know what's going on over there. I haven't heard much from it. And Anthrax are kind of doing their own thing. Of course, the drummer right now is touring with Pantera, so maybe that's just it. Like, Anthrax in and of themselves are like, listen, you know, every 3 or 4 years we'll go out for a little tour, a little rip, you know, for old time's sake. But nah, we just want to retire now and just enjoy old age. And I totally get it. Why would you really invest in that anymore when, it's definitely becoming cost prohibitive. I can't get that word out, whatever. Prohibitive. There it is. I think I threw an extra BB in there. You know how it is. Monday morning. So, you know, it's just that stuff's coming to an end. Will you still see shows in your town? Yeah, you will. But you'll see the live scene significantly contract. You'll be down to like one or maybe two venues in a good sized town of like maybe 50 to 100,000 people. There'll be like two real music venues. You'll have little rinky-dink clubs that try to pull it off with a couple wedges, you know, and a really shitty soundboard, and somebody who pretends to be an engineer. You know what I mean? But you know what you're gonna get open mic night version 1677. It's just gonna be an absolute gong show. So if you want to see like an average size professional band, you're gonna be paying like $60 or $70 for tickets if you can get them at all. Like, that's the thing. They're trying to restrict things down to specific side venues that they know they can sell out so they can charge more money and squeeze the music fans for just more money. Instead of trying to pack them into stadiums now, they're basically buying up all the venues to gain exclusivity and then, of course, limit the size. So only say on a good day, you're going to get between like, you know, a couple thousand people in there to like maybe a bigger band selling out like a small arena, like 10,000 or less. Because that's going to be what's considered a big band now, 10,000 people. And then you'll still have like, you know, the big sort of festivals and stuff like that. But what's that? It's 3 days with like 40 bands, some of them the biggest bands in the world. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense. And then they'll just squeeze those people too. So that's really what we're at. You ever notice that there's this sort of relentless march towards just extracting more resources from the average person just to do things that were used to be considered normal and, of course, enjoyable. Give you a minute to just take your mind off stuff. It's so weird. I find myself thinking about all the times I used to go to Canada's Wonderland and we saw so many bands there. John Denver and McLean, the guy who does American Pie. I can't remember what his first name is. But you know what I'm talking about. And other ones too. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I remember seeing 2 or 3 more there. And I'm just like, that's crazy. You know, like I actually got to see John Denver play live. So that's pretty awesome in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Because he had kind of like this meteoric rise, and he was an amazing artist too, no doubt. Like, you may not like his music and stuff like that, but if you saw him play live, and I do remember it because obviously when you see something like that, it just makes like a mark on you. I remember every band that I ever saw, including the no-name bands, one specifically called Planet that just blew my mind. I was just like, Jesus, they did Jesus Christ Pose by Soundgarden perfectly. That was it. I was just like, you know what I mean? Credit where credit due. It may have been cover, but holy smokes, did they ever drop the beyonds, right? Like, it was just nuts. Just nuts. And that's just it. Those days are gone. I mean, it is what it is. And they'll come back for sure. Nothing dies. For sure it'll come back. And it'll come back stronger than ever. It needs to go through this, honestly. We kind of need to go through this, you know, this mass death, this, this mass extinction, because the market is too bloated with copycat bands and clones and inferior product and people that just, they have money but no real music skill, but they have the cash to just flood the market. Rebecca Black sort of syndrome. You know, daddy's got a lot of money, so we'll just pour it into this and make Princess a little starlet or whatever it is. Who knows? Or this is my birthday present to you when you're 16. What? Spend $1 million on a video? Right. Okay. You know what I mean? So we need to have this sort of cleansing where it just opens things up. There's too much brush. It's got to have like a forest fire situation go on. And only the people that actually have music skill. Notice I say that aren't just, good musicians or good players. I mean, musical skill. You have the total package. You can write music, you can record it, you can present it to people. You have some marketing skills. You have to make videos. Yeah, you kind of do, but to a certain degree, that video can consist of you basically paying for AI to make a cool video for you. You know what I mean? But you'd still have to storyboard it and cough up the cash, whatever it will cost, probably hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do a decent video for about 3 or 4 minutes or more. So, like these are all going to be essential skills if you want to actually be relevant and have even the slightest chance of competing in the modern world, because there's going to be massive corporate interests that are doing the exact same thing. The difference being, of course, is that you can be like, this is a real human, and that's never going to go away. There'll always be a portion of the population that just resists the sort of overwhelming push to be like, conform to this one ideal. It doesn't matter what the ideal is. Take COVID-19. A whole bunch of people were like, nah, you know what I mean? I was one of them. So, pick another one. Sports teams, pick something else, some hot topic, political issue. There's always a portion of people that are like, I'll do what I want. And that's that. And so you're always going to have a portion of people that are going to choose music created by just real human beings. And listen, us using the tools essentially of AI is only limited to our imagination. So if you create like this, obviously, cliched sort of AI type video that didn't actually have you put any thought into what the prompts should be, so you can create the real piece of art using AI as the tool, because it's relatively cheap, if you will, you know what I mean? Then there it is. You have to sort of expand your mind to the possibility that you're going to have to expand beyond music in and of itself and start to get into the visual aspect. First, it starts off with just designing a two-dimensional image for your album cover, but it's probably going to extend into creating that. Of course, the final stage will be streaming an entire live set onto the internet of half an hour or 40 minutes with the music. That will be the future of the live scene for the independent musician. And here's the thing, that might be in jeopardy depending on how things go with the whole age verification stuff, because I feel like that might be a bridge too far for most people and social media and whatnot. So once that starts happening, you're going to see a massive dropout, which will cause a massive drop in content creation and just everyday usage, which will cause more sort of, people to just leave social media and be like, I want to do something else. That could have two really good intentions, but I just don't get the feeling like people are prepared to go back out and just embrace what we were doing in the 80s. It'll take a few years for them to get over their little, hang-ups from the whole pandemic thing and just get back into the swing of doing things socially. And when we do, obviously that'll solve a lot of problems that you're seeing right now that are basically because of the digital age. But ultimately, you have to be prepared for both. And if they don't go that far and they're like, or they do it temporarily, be like, nah, this isn't really working, and they don't do it, that is going to be probably the most viable and simplest to basically reach the maximum number of people, right, to get your music out there. And what I'm saying is obviously, I mentioned it before, like 15 million people tuned in to this Fortnite concert for free, just from the comfort of their own home. And so if you had 20,000 or 30,000 people watching a live stream, well, some of those people are going to go buy some products and stuff like that. And so it can turn into a viable career option for you. But I have to think about it in terms of being a total entrepreneur with the whole, music record label paradigm just thrown out the window, and basically you becoming set up and knowledgeable about how to handle your business. You know what I mean? And that's just it. That's what Megadeth, that's the canary in the coal mine. The old ways are basically dying completely now, where big bands are just like, I'm getting out of the game, man. I'm cashing out my chips. So if you're an up and coming musician, or you want to sort of keep going, at least to have a future, if you will, then honestly, the things I just talked about there are probably going to be the most relevant sort of considerations. And honestly, number one on that list is just developing your mental skills as a musician and be able to capture that music and then put it out onto the internet. Because if social media dies, that doesn't mean that you can't spend a couple $100s a year to get a website and just release the music on your own website. Getting someone to design an app and stuff like that is not nearly as expensive as you think. And you can just get one banged off relatively simplistically, so people can download it and just run it off their own phone or whatever it is. Oh, you want to listen to our music? Here, just download our app. And it constantly populates it with all of our new music and stuff like that. Oh, update the app. We have new songs in the library. Here's the free version where you get all of our greatest hits. And if you want all the catalog, it's like $1 a month. Imagine if you're scooping up $12 a year or something like that, but from every single person that downloaded your app, and maybe that could run into the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And all of a sudden you're talking about a lot of money every single year. You got to renew every year, right? So all of a sudden the options change, right? We have to change our mindset and our game plan too. And that's really how I want to leave off on this sort of observation I made with the Megadeth thing. Yeah. They're sort of like, listen, doing the tour thing, it's not the way to make $1 million anymore. It's to build up your brand name enough that you can then slap it on a bottle of alcohol and sell it to a lot of people. And it's a consumable product. They don't keep the CD for 25 years and never have to buy it again, or just buy it 3 or 4 times. They buy it once a week or twice a month. Right? So if you can sort of spin your music stuff and then stop relying on social media or Spotify and all this other stuff as much, and start to focus more towards transitioning to an internet model where you're going to drive traffic over there, use YouTube, use Twitter, use whatever social media platforms to sort of push people over to your own site in a sort of, covert way, which you're going to have to do anyways. But ultimately, that's going to be the future of any musician. And no, I don't think Patreon or anything else like that's going to help you, because you need to have basically a system set up where you can just take anybody, vet them yourself, and sort of make a decision on how far you want to let them into the website, whether they're part of the chat group or whatever else, the forum. But again, Twitter thrives like insanely. So don't tell me that like just a standard text forum and stuff like that, or just chatting and whatnot, and then sort of answering back people and whatnot, it wouldn't actually work. It would. People do that stuff on Twitch all the time. It's just get rid of the Twitch stuff. Just have the capabilities to stream directly to the internet and have people tune in. Be like, all right, here's the URL. Boom, done, right? And have people be able to access that and be like, sometimes you're just going to sit around and talk about the album or whatever else, or have contests. And the rest of the time you're basically working on music or releasing tutorials. We have to decouple from things like YouTube and Spotify and all the rest of that. It's still a viable tool, absolutely, but we have to start preparing for the fact that, it might be starting to constrict our ability to grow musically, because they're restricting who can actually view this content, and who wants that? We're already struggling for views as is, right? So you got to adapt. Megadeth makes more money now based on selling alcohol than he's ever going to make on music. It's probably starting to cost him money for music. So he's like, go out with a bang and then just transition. You'll still see Megadeth names on alcohol brands. It'll just transition over to that instead of doing music. And Soul, Metallica, and all the rest of them too. They'll just turn them into residual streams. And that's what we have to do. But to build up the fan base in the first place, you got to do the music thing. Right. Okay. That's a pretty crazy video. I'm going to leave it up as is because I think it's actually really important we start recognizing the old ways. Might have to tweak some of those metrics if you really want to survive in the modern internet age, because they're not exactly slowing down on the censorship thing, and that might be detrimental to actually getting your stuff out there. And like I said, we need independent voices that are not under the thumb, that are concerned that they might lose their channel of 1 million people if they say the wrong thing. It'd be better if you had your own autonomy to a certain degree and just straddled the line. You don't have to come right out and say stuff. If you have an intelligent audience, they'll know exactly what you're thinking. Right. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate every single one of you. See you in the next one.